The briefing hologram flickered to life in the command center, displaying what had to be the most pathetic species profile I had ever witnessed in my 47 cycles of military service. Commander Vorth, that would be me, stared at the rotating three-dimensional image of a bipedal creature with laughably thin skin, no natural armor, and what appeared to be decorative fur only on the top of its cranium. "These are humans?" I asked, my mandibles clicking in what any civilized being would recognize as barely contained amusement. Lieutenant Cullep, my second-in-command, nodded with that particular expression of boredom that came from reviewing files of soon-to-be-extinct species. "Correct, Commander. They call themselves Homo sapiens. The translation roughly means wise beings, which seemed," he paused, consulting his datapad, "optimistic." The hologram rotated slowly, showing the creature from multiple angles. No claws, no fangs, no protective exoskeleton, no energy projection capabilities. Nothing but soft pink flesh wrapped around what intelligence reports suggested was a calcium-based skeletal structure. I had seen more intimidating specimens in my nephew's pet collection. "Tell me their technological capabilities," I said, settling into my command chair. Outside the viewport, 300 ships of the Galactic Enforcement Coalition hung in perfect formation, waiting for orders to begin what would surely be the shortest military campaign in recorded history. "Primitive chemical propulsion," Cullep reported. "Basic electromagnetic communications. They have only recently achieved fusion reactions, and their weapons technology appears to be projectile-based." "Metal projectiles, Commander." I nearly choked on my nutrient supplement. "Metal projectiles? Not even plasma-based?" "Negative, sir. They literally throw small pieces of metal at high velocity." Captain Nexu, our tactical specialist, leaned forward from her station. "Sir, if I may, their military organization is peculiar. They divide themselves into smaller territorial groups called nations, and frequently engage in warfare against each other. Our psychological analysis suggests they lack the basic cooperative instincts necessary for effective large-scale military action. They fight among themselves?" This was getting better by the moment. What could they possibly fight about? "Resources. Territory. According to our cultural liaison reports," Nexo continued, "they sometimes engage in conflicts over abstract concepts such as freedom, honor, and something called democracy. They also fight over religious beliefs, which are supernatural frameworks they use to explain natural phenomena they cannot yet understand scientifically." The bridge fell silent for a moment, as we all processed this information. I had been concerned when the High Council assigned us to deal with this species. Humans had apparently been expanding beyond their home system, establishing colonies on several nearby worlds without proper authorization from the galactic authorities. Standard protocol demanded a show of force to bring them into compliance with coalition law. Now I was wondering if this was some kind of punishment detail. "Commander," came the voice of Ensign Brix from the communications station, "we are receiving a transmission from the human homeworld." "Put it through," I said, straightening in my chair. Time to get this embarrassing assignment finished so we could return to real military work. The main screen shifted, and suddenly I was looking at a human face. The creature had typical human features, two eyes positioned inefficiently on the front of its head instead of providing proper peripheral vision, a small protrusion that served as both a breathing and scent detection organ, and a horizontal opening that seemed to serve multiple functions. "This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said. Its voice carried an odd quality that our translation systems labeled as confidence, though that seemed unlikely given the circumstances. "I am requesting immediate communication with your commanding officer." "You are looking at him," I replied, allowing my own confidence to color my words. "I am Commander Vorth of the Galactic Enforcement Coalition. You will surrender your illegal colonies and submit to coalition authority. You have 1 standard hour to begin evacuation procedures." The human's facial expression changed in a way that our behavioral analysis computers struggled to interpret. The corners of its mouth curved upward, exposing what appeared to be calcium-based crushing implements. "Admiral Morrison to all ships. They want us to surrender." I heard something that made my skin plates tingle with unease. Laughter, coming from multiple human voices in the background of their transmission. They were laughing at us. You find this situation amusing? I asked, my own humor rapidly evaporating. Let me explain something to you, Commander, Morrison said, and his voice had changed. Where before it had been merely confident, now it carried undertones that made my threat assessment glands secrete warning pheromones. We checked your databases. We know who you are. We know what you represent, and we know what happens to species that refuse to comply with your demands. Then you understand the futility of resistance, I said, though something about this conversation was not proceeding as expected. Oh, we understand perfectly, Morrison replied. You have superior technology. You have superior numbers. You have superior firepower. You have every single advantage that matters in conventional warfare. Precisely. So you will surrender. No. The simple word hung in the air like a plasma discharge waiting to explode. I blinked all 6 of my eyes in sequence, certain I had misheard. I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? I said, no, Commander. We will not surrender. We will not evacuate our colonies. And we will not submit to your authority. I looked around the bridge at my crew. Kolep was staring at his instruments as if they might provide some explanation for what we were hearing. Nexu had her mandibles slightly open in what could only be described as shock. Even Brix had turned away from his communications console to stare at the main screen. Human, I said slowly. You do realize that I have 300 ships under my command? Each one carries enough firepower to sterilize the surface of a planet. We counted 307. Actually, Morrison said pleasantly. But who is keeping track? My threat glands went into overdrive.
You counted our ships?
Of course we did. We have been tracking your fleet since you entered our sensor range 6 days ago. Frankly, we are a bit disappointed. The Zephyrian hegemony brought twice as many ships when they tried this same thing 3 cycles ago. The Zephyrians? I felt my primary heart skip a beat. What happened to the Zephyrians? Morrison's expression changed again, and this time our computers labeled it as predatory satisfaction. Would you like to ask them yourself? Oh wait, you cannot. They are all dead. The bridge fell silent except for the soft humming of our life support systems. I activated my private command channel and whispered to Calais, get me a detailed report on what happened to the Zephyrian expedition. Now, Commander, Morrison continued from the main screen, you seem to be operating under a fundamental misunderstanding about our species. You see these primitive weapons and assume we are primitive beings. You see our political divisions and assume we are weak. You see our young civilization and assume we are naive. Are you not? I asked, though I was no longer certain I wanted to hear the answer. Let me tell you what we are, Commander. We are a species that spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other before we ever left our home planet. We are beings who have survived ice ages, plague, famine, and global warfare. We are creatures who built weapons capable of destroying our entire world, pointed them at each other for decades, and somehow managed not to use them. Morrison leaned closer to his transmission device, and I found myself unconsciously leaning back in my command chair. We are humans, Commander. We do not surrender. We do not retreat. We do not negotiate from positions of weakness. And we absolutely, positively do not care about your superior numbers. This is madness, I said. You cannot possibly believe you can defeat a coalition fleet. Defeat you? Morrison asked, and that predatory expression intensified. Commander, we do not need to defeat you. We just need to make sure that attacking us costs more than you are willing to pay. Explain. Gladly. Your ships are powerful, but they are also expensive. Your crews are well trained, but they probably have families back home who would prefer they return alive. Your government allocated significant resources to this operation and expects to see results that justify the investment. I felt a cold certainty settling in my stomach. Continue. We, on the other hand, are fighting for our homes, our children, our future. We have nothing to lose and everything to gain. When you threaten us, you do not create a military problem to be solved. You create a math problem. What kind of math problem? Morrison smiled again, and this time I understood why our computers were having trouble categorizing the expression. It was not one emotion but several, blended together in a way that suggested this species had evolved far more complex psychological responses than our initial assessment had indicated. "How many of your ships are you willing to lose to eliminate one human colony?" he asked. "How many of your personnel are you willing to sacrifice? How much of your budget are you willing to spend? Because I promise you, Commander, we will make every single meter of space you take cost you more than you ever imagined possible." Kelap appeared at my shoulder with a datapad, his face pale green with distress. I read the report quickly, my blood growing colder with each line. The Zephyrian expedition had indeed brought over 600 ships to pacify human colonies. They had achieved total military victory in every single engagement. They had also suffered 73% casualties and expended their entire operational budget before being forced to withdraw. Worse, human colonies that they had thought completely destroyed had somehow rebuilt and rearmed themselves within cycles. "I see you are reading about our previous visitors," Morrison observed. "Did you get to the part about the Proxima colony?" I scrolled down to the relevant section and felt my secondary heart stop beating entirely. The Zephyrians had bombarded the Proxima colony with enough firepower to crack continents. Every single human installation had been reduced to radioactive ash. The colony had been declared completely eliminated. 2 cycles later, Zephyrian ships passing through the system had detected new construction. Somehow, impossibly, humans had returned and were rebuilding. When the Zephyrians investigated, they discovered that the humans had been living underground the entire time, continuing their operations from bunkers and tunnels that their initial scans had missed entirely. "Impossible," I whispered. "Improbable," Morrison corrected. "But not impossible. Never impossible. That is the thing about us, Commander. We are really, really bad at knowing when we are supposed to give up." Captain Nexiu stepped forward, her tactical training apparently overriding her shock. "Human, even if your species possesses unusual resilience, you still cannot overcome basic mathematical reality. Our weapons can destroy your ships faster than you can build them." "Can they?" Morrison asked. "Captain, is it? Let me ask you something. How long does it take to build one of your warships?" "Approximately 2 full cycles for a ship of the line," Nexa replied automatically. "Interesting. It takes us about 8 of your cycles to build a proper warship, assuming we follow conventional construction methods. But we are not particularly concerned with conventional methods anymore." Morrison made a gesture with his hand, and the transmission split to show what appeared to be a massive orbital construction facility. But something was wrong with the image. The construction bays were not building ships in the careful, methodical way that any civilized species approached such tasks. They were mass-producing them. "You see, Captain," Morrison continued, "when you threaten an entire species with extinction, you tend to motivate certain changes in manufacturing philosophy. We are no longer building warships to last decades. We are building them to last exactly long enough to damage your fleet before being destroyed." The image showed dozens of ships rolling off production lines with mechanical efficiency. They were crude compared to coalition vessels, but there were so many of them. "How many?" I asked, though I dreaded the answer. "Current production rate is approximately 40 ships per day and increasing. By the time your fleet reaches Earth, we will have over 1,500 ships waiting for you. They will not be as advanced as yours, but they will be crewed by beings who grew up listening to stories of what happened to the Zephyrians." "Stories?" "Oh yes, Commander. We tell our children about the Zephyrians, how they came with overwhelming force, expecting easy victory, how they learned that humans do not calculate acceptable losses the same way other species do, how they discovered that when you threaten human families, human children, human homes, you do not create an enemy army." Morrison paused, and his expression became something that made my entire crew step back from their stations. "You create a crusade." The word hit our translation systems and triggered every single cultural alarm we possessed. A crusade, a religious war, a conflict where normal rules of engagement ceased to apply because the participants believed they were fighting for something more important than their own lives. "Commander," Morrison said, "let me make this very simple for you. You can attack us. You will probably win in the conventional sense. You will destroy our ships, occupy our colonies, and declare victory for the coalition. but you will do so at a cost that will make your superiors question whether expanding coalition territory is worth the price you paid. You are threatening economic warfare? I asked. I am promising total warfare, Morrison replied. When you attack humans, Commander, you do not just fight our military. You fight every single human being who can hold a weapon, operate a tool, or sabotage your equipment. You fight our engineers, our farmers, our children, our elderly. You fight people who have never seen a battlefield, and people who have spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. This is insane. This is human. I found myself staring at the tactical display, trying to reconcile what I was seeing with what I thought I knew about warfare. Everything in my training told me that Morrison was bluffing. No species could sustain the kind of casualties he was describing. No civilization could maintain production under sustained military attack. "Insane bricks," I said quietly. "Get me a priority communication with Coalition Command. I need to speak with Admiral Korvax immediately." "Commander," Morrison said, apparently overhearing, "before you call for reinforcements, you might want to check on what is happening in the Tau Ceti system." Every alarm on the bridge began screaming at once. "Report," I barked. "Commander," Brix said, his voice cracking with stress, "I am receiving emergency transmissions from the Fourth Fleet. They are under attack by human forces at Tau Ceti." "Impossible." Fourth Fleet was conducting routine patrols. "There are no significant human forces in that region." Morrison's laughter filled the bridge, and this time it carried a quality that made my skin crawl. "Commander, did you really think we would wait for you to finish your grand speech before taking action? The moment your fleet entered human space, every single human colony, outpost, and ship received the same message." "What message?" "The Rubicon message. It means the point of no return has been reached. It means we are now officially at war with the Galactic Enforcement Coalition. It means every human in the galaxy has just been authorized to engage any coalition target they can reach." The tactical display erupted with new contacts. Ships appearing on sensors throughout the region. Human ships emerging from asteroid fields, gas giant atmospheres, and deep space positions where they had been waiting in powered-down stealth mode. "How many?" I whispered. "How many what, Commander? Ships? Personnel? Weapons?" We stopped counting. The thing about humans is that when we decide we are at war, we do not limit ourselves to formal military assets. Every mining ship becomes a bomber. Every transport becomes a missile. Every space station becomes a fortress. This violates every law of civilized warfare. "Civilized warfare?" Morrison asked, and his voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. "Commander, let me explain something to you about human civilization. We spent thousands of years learning how to be civilized. We developed rules for warfare, conventions for treating prisoners, agreements about protecting non-combatants." The image on the screen changed, showing what appeared to be historical footage from the human homeworld. Massive military formations clashing across scarred landscapes. Cities reduced to rubble, populations fleeing from advancing armies. But those rules, those civilizations, those careful limitations on the scope of warfare, they all depended on one critical assumption. Which was that both sides wanted to survive the war. Morrison leaned forward again, and I realized that what I had mistaken for confidence was actually something far more dangerous. This human was not afraid because he had already accepted that he was going to die. They all had. "Commander, you came here expecting to conduct a police action against a primitive species. What you have actually done is declare a war of extinction against a race that has been preparing for this moment since the day we first looked up at the stars." "Preparing how?" "Every human child learns the same lessons, Commander. How to fight, how to hide, how to build weapons from common materials, how to coordinate resistance operations, how to make sure that occupying human territory costs more than any sane military force is willing to pay." The tactical display showed more contacts appearing every minute. Human ships, human installations, human forces that our intelligence reports had never detected. They had been there all along, waiting for this moment. "You see, Commander, you made the same mistake every other species makes when they encounter humans. You assume that because we fight among ourselves, we cannot unite against external threats. You assume that because we appear primitive, we lack sophisticated strategic thinking. You assume that because we value individual freedom, we cannot coordinate collective action. These assumptions seem logical. They would be for any other species. But humans are not logical, Commander. We are psychological. We are emotional. We are absolutely, completely, irredeemably stubborn. And when you threaten our families, our homes, or future, you activate something in us that your psychological profiles never detected. Which is? Morrison smiled one more time, and this expression needed no translation at all. You activate our capacity for creative spite. The bridge fell silent, except for the continuing alarms and the steady stream of emergency reports coming in from across the sector. Coalition forces under attack at 7 different locations. Human ships appearing in places where intelligence said no human ships. Coordinated strikes against supply lines, communication nodes, and command centers. Commander, Morrison said, you have approximately 30 minutes before the first wave of human ships reaches your position. I am going to give you one last chance to withdraw your forces and return to Coalition space. And if I refuse, then you are going to learn why in 10,000 years of warfare the humans have never developed a word that means surrender unconditionally. I looked around the bridge at my crew. Kilip was pale green with shock. Nexu was frantically running tactical calculations that seemed to change every few seconds. As new enemy contacts appeared on our screens, Brix was trying to maintain communication with a dozen coalition units, while human jamming signals played havoc with our equipment. This is madness, I said again. This is Tuesday, Morrison replied. For us, this is just Tuesday. The question you need to ask yourself, Commander, is simple. How much of your fleet are you willing to lose to prove a point? The transmission ended, leaving us alone with the sound of alarms and the growing realization that nothing in our military training had prepared us for what we were facing. 27 minutes. That was how long it took for me to understand that everything I thought I knew about warfare was completely, catastrophically wrong. Commander. Ensign Brix's voice cracked with panic. Emergency transmission from the 7th Cruiser Wing. They report human vessels emerging from the asteroid field at coordinates 779 by 442. How many ships? I demanded, my claws gripping the command chair so tightly they left permanent grooves in the metal. Unknown, sir. The electromagnetic interference is off the scale. Our sensors cannot get accurate counts. I turned to Captain Nexu, who was hunched over her tactical console like a predator stalking prey. Analysis? It makes no sense, Commander, she said, her mandibles clicking rapidly in what I recognized as extreme stress. These humans should not have this many ships. Our intelligence reports indicated minimal naval capacity. Their largest fleet actions involved no more than 30 vessels. Clearly our intelligence was wrong. No, sir, that is what bothers me. Our intelligence was correct. 3 cycles ago, the humans genuinely did not possess significant military assets. Somehow, impossibly, they have built an entire battle fleet in less than 3 cycles. That is impossible. No species can achieve that kind of production increase. Lieutenant Kalap looked up from his station with an expression that suggested he had been reviewing data that violated several laws of physics. Commander, I have been analyzing the construction techniques visible in their transmission footage. These humans are not building ships. They are manufacturing them. Explain the difference. When we build a ship, we custom design each component for optimal performance, durability, and efficiency. We expect our vessels to serve for decades. These humans appear to be using modular construction techniques that prioritize speed of assembly over longevity. I studied the tactical display, trying to process what I was seeing. You mean they are building disposable warships? Precisely, sir. Each vessel is designed to fulfill exactly one mission before being destroyed or abandoned. It is the most wasteful, inefficient, insane approach to military construction I have ever encountered. And also, Captain Nexu added grimly, the most effective approach for a species that expects to lose every single engagement but wants to make sure the enemy pays a terrible price for each victory. The implications hit me like a plasma torpedo to the brain. They are not trying to win a conventional war. No, sir. They are trying to make this war too expensive for us to continue. Commander. Rix's voice had climbed to a pitch that was almost painful to hear. Multiple human contacts approaching from bearing 270. Estimated time to engagement range, 14 minutes. What about our reinforcements? The 4th Fleet is still engaged at Tau Ceti. The 8th Fleet is responding to human attacks in the Beta Centauri system. Coalition Command has authorized emergency deployment of the Reserve Fleet, but they will not arrive for at least 6 hours. 6 hours. We would either be victorious or dead long before reinforcements could arrive. Open a channel to all ships, I commanded. Battle alert, all vessels to combat readiness. Prepare to engage human forces. Channel open, sir. All units. This is Commander Vorth. We are about to engage an enemy that does not follow conventional tactical doctrine. Expect unorthodox attacks, kamikaze runs, and weapon systems that violate standard engineering principles. Our objective is simple: demonstrate coalition superiority and force human compliance. Vorth out. I closed the channel and immediately opened a private communication to Admiral Corax at Coalition Command. Priority Alpha transmission to Admiral Corax. Authorization code Gamma 77 Theta. The hologram of Admiral Corax materialized beside my command chair. Even across light years of space, I could see the stress lines around his compound eyes. Report, Commander. Sir, the situation has developed beyond our initial parameters. Human forces are engaging coalition assets across multiple systems simultaneously. Their production capacity appears to have been significantly underestimated. How significantly? They are building ships faster than we are destroying them. Admiral Corax's expression changed in ways that made my survival instincts scream. That is impossible. With respect, sir, we appear to be encountering many impossibilities today. I am transmitting tactical data now. Corax studied the information for several moments, his silence growing more ominous with each passing second. Commander, these production figures suggest the humans have converted their entire industrial base to military manufacturing. Yes, sir. Their entire economy is now dedicated to building ships designed to attack us. Correct, sir. They have bankrupted themselves to build a fleet of suicide weapons. That appears to be accurate. Admiral Corax made a sound that our translators could not interpret. Commander, do you understand what this means? Sir? It means they have already decided that they would rather die as a species than submit to coalition authority. Every ship they are sending against us is crewed by beings who expect to die. This is not a military operation. This is a death cult with advanced technology. The thought had occurred to me, but hearing it stated so bluntly made my primary heart skip several beats. Orders, sir. Proceed with the mission, but exercise extreme caution. Document everything. If these humans have genuinely weaponized their entire civilization, the High Council needs to know about it. The transmission ended, leaving me alone with the growing certainty that I was about to participate in something that would be studied in military academies for centuries to come, assuming anyone survived to study it. Commander, Captain Nexel called out. Human vessels entering extreme sensor range. Initial count 237 ships. 237? I felt my threat glands flood my system with so much adrenaline that I briefly saw double. How is that possible? Unknown, sir, but the numbers keep climbing. 259, 271, sir. They are still coming. I activated the main tactical display and watched in horrified fascination as red icons representing human ships continued to appear on our sensors. They were emerging from everywhere. Asteroid fields, gas giant atmospheres, the shadows of planets, even from what appeared to be empty space. Sir, Lieutenant Kalap said quietly, I am detecting unusual energy signatures from several of the human vessels. They appear to be using our own technology. Impossible. Humans do not have access to coalition technology. With respect, sir, the Zephyrians did. The bridge fell silent as we all processed the implications. When the Zephyrian expedition had withdrawn from human space, they had left behind wrecked ships, abandoned equipment, and undoubtedly classified technology. You think the humans have been reverse engineering Zephyrian technology for 3 cycles? Sir, I think the humans have been reverse engineering everyone's technology. Look at this. Caleb transferred his analysis to the main screen, and what I saw made my blood freeze. The approaching human fleet was not using standardized designs. Every ship was different. Some appeared to be built using human manufacturing techniques. Others showed clear influences from Zephyrian engineering. Still others displayed characteristics that matched half a dozen different coalition member species. They have been collecting our technology every time we attack them, I whispered. Not just collecting it, sir. Improving it. Look at these weapon signatures. They have taken Zephyrian plasma cannons and somehow increased their power output by 40%. How? By removing all the safety systems and accepting that the weapons will destroy themselves after a few shots. Once again, they are prioritizing immediate effectiveness over long-term viability. I stared at the tactical display, trying to comprehend what I was seeing. The humans were fielding a fleet that was larger than our own, armed with weapons that were more powerful than our own, crewed by beings who expected to die, and led by a species that had apparently spent 3 cycles preparing for exactly this moment. "Commander," Brix announced, "incoming transmission from Admiral Morrison. Put him through." Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. But something had changed. Where before he had seemed confident and controlled, now he looked like a predator that had caught sight of prey. "Commander Vorth," he said, "I see you have decided to remain in human space. I am disappointed, but not surprised. Admiral Morrison, I am prepared to discuss terms for a negotiated settlement." Morrison's expression shifted to something that made every survival instinct I possessed scream for me to run. "Terms? Commander, the time for negotiation ended. The moment your fleet crossed into our territory. You came here to force us to surrender. Now you are going to find out what happens when you threaten a species that has never learned how to quit. This is madness. You cannot possibly believe you can defeat the entire coalition." "Defeat you," Morrison laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass. "Commander, we are not trying to defeat the coalition. We are trying to teach the coalition a lesson." "What lesson?" "That some prices are too high to pay. That some species cannot be conquered. That when you threaten human families, human children, human freedom, you do not create a problem that can be solved with superior firepower." Morrison made a gesture, and the transmission split to show tactical displays from across human space. Coalition fleets under attack at dozens of locations. Human ships swarming out of hiding places that our intelligence had never detected. Coordinated strikes against supply lines, communication networks, and command centers. "You see, Commander, you made a fundamental error in your threat assessment. You assumed that because humans appear primitive, we think primitively. You assumed that because we fight among ourselves, we cannot coordinate against external threats. You assumed that because we value individual freedom, we cannot sacrifice for collective survival. These assumptions were logical based on available data. They were logical for any other species. But humans are not logical, Commander. We are emotional. We are stubborn. We are creative. And when you threaten everything we care about, we become something that your psychological profiles never detect. Which is?" Morrison leaned forward, and his expression became something that needed no translation. "We become inevitable." The tactical display erupted with alarms as the first wave of human ships entered weapons range. What happened next violated every principle of military tactics I had ever learned. Instead of forming proper battle lines, the human ships spread out in a seemingly random pattern that made targeting them individually almost impossible. Instead of concentrating their fire on our strongest ships, they attacked everything simultaneously. Instead of preserving their forces for decisive engagements, they threw everything they had at us in a coordinated assault that prioritized maximum damage over tactical elegance. "All ships, engage," I commanded. "Target the largest vessels first." The space around us lit up with weapons fire as 300 coalition ships opened fire on the approaching human fleet. Our plasma cannons and particle beams lanced out with lethal precision, striking target after target. Human ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light and debris. But for every human ship we destroyed, 2 more appeared to take its place. "Sir," Captain Nexu called out. Human vessels are employing kamikaze tactics. They are ramming our ships. I watched in horror as a human vessel, already critically damaged by our weapons fire, accelerated directly toward one of our cruisers. The collision vaporized both ships in a ball of plasma that temporarily blinded our sensors. These humans are insane, Lieutenant Kellep exclaimed. No, I said quietly, finally understanding what we were facing. They are desperate, and desperate humans are the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. The battle raged for over an hour, and with each passing minute I understood more clearly how thoroughly we had underestimated our opponents. The humans were not trying to win a conventional naval engagement. They were trying to make this battle cost us more than victory was worth. Every human ship that died took a coalition vessel with it. Every coalition ship destroyed represented millions of credits in technology, training, and resources. Every coalition crew member killed represented years of education and experience that could not be easily replaced. The humans were trading quantity for quality, using superior numbers to offset inferior technology. But more than that, they were trading their lives to send a message to the coalition that conquering humanity would come at a price that no sane government would be willing to pay. Commander, Rick shouted over the sound of alarms. Priority transmission from Coalition Command. Put it through. Admiral Korax appeared on the screen, and his expression was grim. Commander, I have just received reports from across the sector. Human forces have simultaneously attacked Coalition assets in 47 different systems. 47. Correct. Supply depots, communication relays, patrol squadrons, and civilian shipping. They are targeting our infrastructure, not just our military forces. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Sir, are you saying this attack is coordinated across multiple star systems? I am saying this attack was planned years in advance. The humans have been preparing for this moment since the first contact with the Zephyrians. Every time we have engaged them, they have learned from the experience and prepared countermeasures. What are our casualties? Admiral Korax paused for a moment that felt like an eternity. Current estimates suggest we have lost 30% of our total fleet strength in the last 4 hours. The bridge fell silent, except for the continuing sound of weapons fire and explosions outside our hull. 30% casualties in 4 hours. It was a disaster of unprecedented proportions. Sir, I said slowly. What are your orders? Withdraw, Commander. All coalition forces are to withdraw to minimum safe distance and await further instructions. Sir, if we withdraw now, the humans will claim victory. Commander, if we continue this engagement, we will have no fleet left to withdraw. The humans have made their point. Attempting to conquer them will cost more than the coalition is willing to pay. I looked around the bridge at my crew. Kellep was monitoring damage reports from across our fleet. Nexu was calculating casualty projections that grew worse with each update. Brix was trying to coordinate withdrawal orders while human jamming systems interfered with our communications. All ships, I announced. This is Commander Worth. We are withdrawing to minimum safe distance. All vessels are to disengage and form up on my position. As our fleet began to pull back from the engagement zone, I opened a channel to Admiral Morrison. His face appeared on the screen, and for the first time since this conversation began, he looked tired. Admiral, I said, you have made your point. Coalition forces are withdrawing. Good, Morrison replied. But understand, Commander, this is not over. This is just the beginning. What do you mean? Word of this engagement will spread throughout the galaxy. Other species will learn that the coalition can be fought. That superior technology does not guarantee victory. That sometimes, the price of conquest is higher than the value of what you are trying to conquer. I felt a chill run through my circulatory system. You are encouraging other species to rebel against coalition authority? I am not encouraging anything, Commander. I am simply pointing out that when you threaten an entire species with extinction, you tend to motivate certain changes in their behavior. Morrison made another gesture, and the transmission showed images from across human space. Massive construction facilities building ships at an impossible rate. Training centers where human civilians were learning military tactics. Research facilities where captured coalition technology was being analyzed and improved. You see, Commander, You accomplished something today that human leaders have been trying to achieve for centuries. You united our entire species against a common enemy. Every human in the galaxy now knows that the Coalition sees us as a threat to be eliminated. Every human colony, outpost, and ship now knows that surrender means extinction. This will lead to chaos throughout the galaxy. Perhaps it will lead to freedom. The Coalition has maintained order through superior firepower and the threat of overwhelming retaliation. But what happens when species stop being afraid of retaliation because they know that cooperation and resistance lead to the same result? I stared at the tactical display, watching human ships continue to emerge from hiding places throughout the system. Even after hours of combat, they were still coming, still fighting, still refusing to surrender. How long have you been planning this? I asked. Since the moment we first learned that we were not alone in the galaxy, Morrison replied. From the day we discovered that there were other intelligent species among the stars, we began preparing for the possibility that some of them might not want us to exist. And if we had come in peace, Morrison's expression softened slightly. Then we would have welcomed you as friends, shared our knowledge and our culture, and worked together to build a better galaxy for everyone. But instead we came as conquerors. Yes, and now you understand the difference between humans who want to be your friends and humans who have decided you need to be stopped. The transmission ended, leaving us alone with the aftermath of a battle that had changed everything. Our fleet was retreating. Human forces controlled the system, and somewhere in the depths of space, other species were receiving reports of what had happened here. Reports that would spread throughout the galaxy like a virus, carrying a simple message: the Coalition could be fought. The Coalition could be fought. The Coalition could be defeated by a species that refused to surrender, no matter the odds. Commander, Lieutenant Calep said quietly, what happens now? I looked out at the stars, thinking about the reports that would be filed, the meetings that would be held, and the decisions that would be made in the halls of Coalition power. Disengagement would be studied and analyzed. Strategies would be developed, new approaches would be tested. But none of that mattered, because the humans had already won the only victory that counted. They had proven that conquest was not always possible, that some species could not be defeated, no matter how superior your technology or how overwhelming your numbers. They had proven that sometimes the price of victory was higher than any sane civilization was willing to pay. Now, I said, settling back in my command chair as our fleet continued its withdrawal from human space, now we learn to live in a galaxy where humans exist, and we hope that they remain more interested in protecting their own freedom than in taking ours away. As our ships jumped to hyperspace, leaving the humans to their hard-won victory, I could not shake the feeling that we had just witnessed the beginning of something that would change the balance of power throughout the galaxy forever. The humans had taught the Coalition a lesson about the price of conquest. Now the rest of the galaxy would learn what they had discovered, that some species would rather die free than live as slaves, and that sometimes the most dangerous enemy you can face is the one who has already accepted that they are going to lose, as long as they can make sure you lose more.